Well, if we're gonna find any ghosts, we better split up.
You're listening to Never Split Up, a horror movie podcast.
There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror movie.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Never Split Up podcast. This is episode 57, where we are covering Salem's Lot, released in 2024, the remake of Salem's Lot that was just released. How you doing, everybody? How you doing, Anthony? What's going on?
I'm doing great. We are in October, so it's the best month of the year, and I'm excited to talk about horror movies.
Yes, we released the original Salem's Lot movie. We're recording this on the 3rd, but we just released that episode on the 2nd, so that was our first October release. But, you know, this is the first episode we're recording in October, so we're now fully into the swing of things, which is great. And speaking of which, definitely go check out our last episode to get yourself caught up before this episode, because now we're talking about the brand new release. This is kind of first for us. We've never done anything like this in terms of like, the movie literally released today. I know you watched it last night at midnight before bed, but I was able to watch it literally a couple hours ago. So we're going to call this a review, but to me, this is more of like a reaction episode, especially for me. It's going to feel like, just picture like walking out of the theater. I know this movie wasn't in theaters. Like, this is the type of like raw reaction I'm going to have. Like, you know, I haven't really digested much, so I'm just going to talk about overall feelings and, you know, possibly performances. But you actually got to sleep on it, and I don't know. Technically, I don't know if that's going to affect how you look at the film. You didn't go back and watch it a second time, correct? You just watched it the once.
Actually, like the movie, I'm a crazy person because I planned on coming over to your house to watch it, but adulting got in the way. So the movie released at 3 a.m. this morning, so I woke up at 4 o'clock and watched it.
Oh,
so I watched it in the dark. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I wanted to watch it when it was like dark out, and I knew I wasn't gonna have time at all today. So so I didn't sleep on it, but I watched it first thing when I opened my eyes, and it was something.
Gotcha. Okay, so you didn't quite sleep on it, but still, you've had kind of the entire day to process it, if you will. So this is going to be interesting. Again, if you didn't listen to our last episode, definitely check that out. For those of you that have, you know, Ant's feelings on the original Salem's Lot. Spoiler alert, it's his favorite vampire movie of all time. So going into this, I know, Ant, you said you were very nervous, very worried. You wanted a specific type of movie. You wanted him to kind of stay true to the original vibes. So I'm really curious to hear. You couldn't help yourself. You kind of did the little Twitter review. So I kind of get a little aspect and insight into what you're feeling.
We have a lot to talk about.
Yeah. So yeah, let's just dive right in. Any announcements you want to make before we dive in? Did you want to announce who won the poll or anything first?
So guys, we ran the poll for Dracula because we're a week ahead with the polls, and I came out on top. I chose Renfield, you know, ignoring the villagers, and Nolan chose Jonathan. You know, he was pretty much a fool in love and didn't leave when he should have. So I just came out on top of that a little bit, but we really appreciate you guys. We're starting to get more votes with that too. So keep that consistent. Let us know your Never Split Up moments. You know, argue in the comments who you agree with more and why. We love that. And yeah, I think it's important that you guys check out our original Salem's Lot episode, especially before coming and watch this one, so you can compare and contrast our different reactions to both movies. I think that's going to be really important for this episode, especially for me, who that movie's so special to me versus, you know, what I was looking for in this one and what I got. And same with Nolan. You didn't even mention that how you felt about the original. You appreciate it. It's a well-made movie, but it's not something that you're going to go back to more. So I think that's important for people to go back and really get the details on that before they watch this one. And, you know, get our takes on why we love or don't love this new adaptation.
For sure. Last episode definitely is going to provide a lot of context into how we're feeling about this movie, especially for you. So I would definitely recommend that as well. Okay, let's dive right in. I'm eager to discuss this with you.
Do you want me to do the director first, or do you want to just dive right into?
Yeah,
the reaction?
let's do that. Let's go over the cast and crew first. You can tackle that.
All right, so guys, this was originally supposed to be released in theaters, back in 2022 and 2023. They delayed it and shelved it. Well, they definitely shelved it. We'll see. Now I might know why, but it was directed by Gary Doberman. He actually wrote a couple of the Conjuring movies. He directed Annabelle Comes Home. He wrote It and It Chapter 2. So he's in that Warner Brothers Conjuring type family, writer. It's obviously another adaptation, a Stephen King adaptation. It stars Louis Pullman. I really like Louis Pullman. He's a great actor. I thought he was really good in Top Gun Maverick, and he's good in The Strangers Pray at Night. He's a really good actor. He's an up and coming actor. Mackenzie Lee, she plays Susan. Bill Camp is Matthew Burke. He's in a lot of movies. Alfred Woodard, she's Dr. Cody. And then a bunch of other supporting cast members, just like the original had a bunch of supporting cast members. William Sadler's in this, so yeah, they got a decent supporting cast, and well, it's a movie, so let's get to it.
It is a movie. So, yes, okay, well, we might as well just start with you then, because,
okay,
you did your Twitter review, you're kind of
right.
Hinting at your overall feelings, so why not, I'll let you kick it off and kind of lead the
Perfect.
the
I
discussion
know, I can't wait
first.
to hear you, because I have no idea. You didn't do a little, I didn't even see a tweet or anything from you, so I
did see a tweet, but Elon buried it.
did?
Nobody saw it. My analytics are buried, so don't even bother looking at it. I think I might even delete it.
Or, well, I'm not going to look at it.
Don't
now,
look at it. Yeah.
All right.
It was a quick tweet. It was a short tweet. It wasn't really a review.
Okay. All right, so I'm really excited to hear what you think. But okay, guys. Salem's Lot 1979 is the second horror movie I've ever seen. It's my favorite vampire movie, and I think that this 2024 adaptation pales in comparison to that movie limited series in every single way possible. I talked about on our last episode my concerns and fears going into this one, and pretty much every concern and fear I had was validated once the credits started rolling in this movie, and that's unfortunate because I really did want to enjoy this and love it, but I don't. It's really, really, really a cheap imitation of stitched together scenes of the original. And even if taking the original out of it and taking my obsession out of that, watching this as its own movie and own adaptation, it's still your run-of-the-mill, cookie-cutter, filled with cheap jump scares, overuse of CGI, VFX horror movie that is, this is one thing I was really worried about. It's so rushed. Every scene is so, it's just get to this half-ass set piece, one scene of dialogue, get to this half-ass set piece. I don't get to know any of the characters. It's just stitched together scare sequences that aren't even scary. There's no sense of dread. And if you want to get on the vampires, like last week, I talked about how important those vampires and the look and the vibe and the mannerisms, how terrifying they were. These vampires are CGI messes. I mean, don't even get me started with Barlow. I don't know what the fuck they did with his design, and it was it makes me so mad because this had so much potential, and I just it fluttered out. The first time I saw him, like, okay, like they're showing him a little bit, it's gonna be okay. But then once I saw, like, even in that first scene, I'm like, oh, they had to go like CGI his face and like fuck it up. It just it pisses me off so much. But we'll get into it a little bit more. But again, there's scenes where like people revoke the imitation and you just see vampires like getting like pretty much flying out of scene. Like it almost looks like they're getting sucked out of the scene. I'm like, this is so cheesy and cringy. The dialogue is cringy. It almost feels like I'm watching them rehearsing and not even acting. It doesn't even feel like I'm just like this.
That's a good one. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, this is like cringe dialogue, very cheesy. And again,
Wow.
I love cheese, but not for Salem's Lot.
Wow.
And I'll get into some positives because I will. There's the throwback to the 70s vibes. I always love a good throwback to the 70s, and it had that. There's some scenes where the atmosphere is there, but I almost feel like it's almost just because of the fog machine they had, so it gets a little bit of atmosphere at some of the nighttime scenes. There's some great production value, in certain set pieces, The house still looks cool on the inside somewhat. And I would just say, if you need to watch this, it's entertaining for a one-time Friday night streaming movie in October. Like, it's that, if you're going to watch it, this is the time of year to do it, but you're going to forget about it an hour later, and it's not going to sit with you at all. The scenes that were so iconic in the original are so rushed, and they're just replaced. Instead of building up suspense, they're just replaced with a quick jump scare that isn't even an effective jump scare. We'll get into examples, because I have a lot of examples when I get to. But yeah, guys, unfortunately, this one bummed me out, and I'm so upset because I've been championing this release. We talked about it, when the podcast started, how much I was looking forward to this coming out in theaters, and now I'm just like, I kind of know why they weren't comfortable and didn't know what to do with this for a couple years. It would have still made a pretty penny if they released it in theaters just because horror in October, but I kind of get why they wanted it to be a Max original, and it bums me out because it has so much potential, and it wasn't even. I said last week, if it's 50% as creepy and scary and atmospheric as the original, I'd be happy, but I don't even know if it's 10% as scary and atmospheric as the original. So unfortunately, unless you just want to do a one-time Max watch, I really don't think this is worth your time. There's going to be a bunch of other worthy new horror releases in October to check out. So yeah, unfortunately, this one, it's not for me. Didn't do it.
Wow. Okay, here we go. Wow. That is a scathing review, especially for Anthony standards.
And I know, it's not. I'm not that hard to please.
Yeah. Okay. A couple points before I get into my thoughts. I hate to say it, but yeah, I wanted to say this last week. I pretty much knew that you weren't going to like this movie the way you were talking about what you wanted from it. I mean, I dare I say it was unrealistic expectations for you. I know you try to look at things unbiasedly, but you have to admit that you're gonna have extreme bias with this movie. So whether or not I like it or not, I don't want to be like, oh, I knew it, but I was kind of going into this saying to myself, there is a very small chance that Anthony enjoys this movie because I just knew.
Really
like you talked about the crew, I just knew the writers, they wrote it Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. It was going to be kind of in that same vein. I just knew it wasn't going to replicate the original.
And I enjoy those movies, by the way.
Yes,
it's just, that's not Salem's Lot to me. Yeah.
Exactly. And you have an image of Salem's Lot and what you want out of it. And when it deviates, you're going to just go off the deep end with it. So, I'm not surprised that's what I'll say. I am surprised of how much you dislike it, though. I mean, I don't hear you talk about horror movies like this very often. And I know it's because it means so much to you. And you had such, I guess, high hopes that it was going to recapture what you felt with the original. But yeah, that's I'm sorry, man. That sucks because I know you were looking forward to this movie for a while. That really sucks.
And we'll get into the editing and pacing, just in general, the pacing issues when we after your thoughts. But and just not like my cousin. People know how much I love it. My cousin, she's like, "Oh, did you watch Salem's Lot?" Yeah, I'm throwing it on now. I'm like, "Yeah, I did. Let me know what you think."
Yeah,
it wasn't for me. And she messaged me. She's like, "I'm struggling to get through it. It's just way too cheesy." I'm just like, well, yeah.
Okay, so all of the points that you brought up about this movie, I feel about the original. It's pretty funny as you were going through all the points. It's so flip-flopped in terms of the original. Now, the new one. All right, my overall thoughts. My tweet was...
because I just looked at it when you started talking.
This movie fucking rips, dude.
What? Wait, I gotta go. Is this real life? Are you fucking with me? I gotta go look at it.
I'm not fucking with you.
Why do your tweets not pop up on my page?
I don't know. I get like shadow banned, I guess. Who knows? Ask Elon.
You did put it in. You gotta be kidding me. Okay.
Dude, I had fun with this movie. I'm sorry. There are things I will agree with you. It is messy in the beginning. For sure. It feels like you're jumping into a story that's already halfway through. I will agree with that, but once the director was Gary Doberman, once he hits his stride with this movie, I really feel like it came into its own, especially the second half of the movie. I will admit, I will agree with you that the town, they did not highlight the town nearly enough. That was probably my biggest turnoff to the movie. and probably Salem's Lot. I mean, people who love or hate the original, you have to admit that you really feel like you got to know the townsfolk and the town just kind of descending into darkness. I mean, that's like what the overall feeling of that movie is, whether it works for you or not. This one, I feel like they decided to go the route of highlighting the vampires more and their kind of turn instead of the town itself, if that makes sense. Because a high point for me was, especially when we get towards the ending and when shit starts hitting the fan, is I think you said the opposite, but I really got a sense that this town was fucked. I mean, the vampires were there to like fuck shit up, and you really saw that. I mean, they're on the rooftops, they're stalking the streets. Some of those shots of them, the one shot of Lewis Pullman, Ben in the middle of the street with them on the rooftops and on Main Street was really cool. I was like, oh fuck, it's super fucked. You don't really get that. The only cool shot in the movie. You don't really get that too much in the original. You do because it's not seen. It's you kind of feel it, which is great. But they kind of went a different direction, and they didn't really kind of give you more of like the town didn't feel open. There was just very small set pieces throughout the town, if that makes sense. And they didn't really open it up to feel like you were in this like gorgeous like small town, in Maine. So I will agree with you there. But again, I don't know. Again, this is like my raw reaction. So I'm trying to think about how I feel of your comments when you said that this movie's forgettable. I don't think so. I think there's enough there for me. I think I'm gonna go back to this movie and have a good time. I actually have a really good time with it. I agree with you. The CGI, I don't mind the CGI except with Barlow. I'm not gonna say that I would have preferred CGI over practical. Obviously, I think anyone would prefer practical, especially when you have Barlow from the 70s looking so great. I mean, the blueprint's there, so that was disappointing. His overall design, if you're not factoring that in, was fine. I didn't mind the CGI with the other vampires as much. I thought it was good. I don't think it's as cringy as you think it was. There are some choices that were cringy. I hated Susan. Her character was probably the cringiest in the entire movie. I don't even think she needed to be in the movie. I hated Susan in the original. We made fun of that character in the original, but
we hated. We didn't like. It was the character in the original. Like it wasn't like the act. Like it was just the new one. It was just like everything. I'm like, this is fucking rough.
Yeah, I don't really care for either Susan, but this one in particular was pretty rough. I'm not gonna lie to you there, but Lewis Pullman, he carries this movie for me. I think just like in the original, Ben is. He carries the load for me in both movies, and he's awesome. He's a great actor. I think he did well, especially at the end. He's proven that he can be a leading man, I think, with this role, especially in horror. And yeah, I had a really good time with this, man. I really want to dive in to specific points in this movie, but I don't think it's as cringy as you do. And I would say if you're a fan of like the It movies and you're a fan of those style of movies, I think it's unique enough. It reminded me of the newer It movies for sure, but I think it has its own style and its own flair. There were a couple moments that genuinely shocked me that I was like, holy shit, they went there. Like the shotgun scene, that was fucking crazy. With Dr. Cody, when Dr. Cody dies, that I didn't see that coming. That was pretty cool. So yeah, I think this is a recommend for me. So it sounds like it's not a recommend for you, though.
No. I said if you want to watch a one-time movie on streaming in October, and that's the only time I'll watch it.
Yeah.
Maybe. If you have nothing better to watch, but you got Smile 2 coming out next week, you got some good Terrifier 3 coming out. Terrifier 3 next week, Smile 2 in a couple weeks. You got better options coming up, I have a feeling. Go watch the original again.
Yeah, that was another point. Thank you. The pacing. I thought the pacing was much better in this movie than the original. Oof. I hated the pacing in the original. I thought they sprinkled in horror elements throughout the movie that kept you that kept you going. So, and I like the idea of introducing Barlow in kind of the opening sequence. That was kind of, I remember I kind of said last week how I wish they did that and that you kind of felt Barlow's presence throughout the movie. I didn't get that in the original like you did. This movie I did because of some of those sequences that they kind of highlighted early on. They didn't necessarily have to show him as much. I will maybe agree with you there.
He fucking talked in this one too. Oh my god.
That I didn't mind. Just them. I wish they kind of didn't show him the first half at quite as much, but I think overall it was a good decision to kind of highlight him a little bit sooner than the previous movie, at least for me. For my preferences.
Yeah, I think the pacing in this movie was an absolute travesty.
Why? What makes you think the pacing? So I get everything else, but the pacing I thought was.
It's fast paced. It's very, very fast paced movie.
Fast paced. It's a 2-hour movie though. So, I mean,
I think it's like an hour and 48 minutes without credits. It's pretty. It's pretty. I think it's rushed. It feels rushed. All we're doing is like speeding up to the next set piece. That's a half-fast set piece. We don't get any time with the characters. I don't get any time with Ben. Really.
What?
All I get is like he goes into town. He's coming back, from his childhood. He meets this girl who is a waste of space. Even the love story is forced. Like we go to the drive and she's like, I want to show you the best seat in the house. It's like all generic, cheesy shit.
Every love story is forced in a movie though. I mean, it's always
but
rushed.
even with the two little boys who like go, I do like I will say, I think the kid who played Mark, like he did what he could with the material. Like he was pretty cool in the movie. But even that, it's like they go and the three kids are hanging out and the two boys just immediately walk right home and they're, the one's captured right away. And then you do that. First of all, I talked about last week how the window scenes were like terrifying to me. In this movie, it's fucking horrible. First of all, the first one.
How are you going to sit there and say that the original window scene is terrifying, as corny as that looks?
It's not.
And the kid's the kid can't can't act to save his life. He's literally laughing.
What? It's so good. This one is not even a friggin' kid. It's like a CGI face. It's like kind of popping up to the window. I'm like, this is.
I thought the voice acting was really cool in the window scene. I'm not going to defend the CGI, but I actually thought it was pretty cool.
The first time when he comes, coaxes his brother outside the back, I'm like, oh, cool, they're doing something different. But all we do is see, the fucking seesaw go up once, and then you get a friggin', cheap jump scare hand pop down quick. I'm like, okay, what the fuck was that shit? It was just...
Well, so
bad.
But now you're complaining that they didn't show it. So, you're complaining...
No, I'm talking about... First of all, bring him in the backyard, do a little creepy build-up. All we just do, he goes in the backyard, looks around, and there's a hand pops out.
That's so funny, because everything you're saying, I feel about the original. Because I feel like the original does that, where it's like a suspenseful scene, and then they just end it. They don't show anything.
And this one, it's not even a suspenseful scene. It just goes outside for a quick jump scare, and then you're done. Like the scene when, and I talked about it in the original, when I forget, is his name Mike? Juliette Lewis's dad, whoever he plays in the original, when he's burying the kid in the coffin, he has to go down, he opens the coffin, you just see the kid's eyes.
Yeah, that's the perfect example of what I'm saying.
And then it takes time. This one, he's fucking throwing the things on. I actually do like that he kept going back, and I mean, first of all, I don't know why the pile was so far away that he had to walk that was pretty... On his workmanship, that was pretty stupid, but whatever. I liked it.
Well, I guess for the funeral,
suspense,
you want to keep
fine.
it. I don't know.
I was like, work ethic right there, boy. But anyway, I thought that was cool. He was going back and forth, and then when he went in, he opened it. I'm like, okay. Then he closed it, and then all you get though was a kid just fly out and jump scare. I'm like, why is everyone flying, and why is it so cheap? And it looks so cheap to me when they just fly and pop out in front of their face. Ugh.
But isn't that part of the lore? Don't they fly around just in
fly
the
around?
In the
it's
original?
Not like fucking. What are we, Superman? It looked like I'm watching a Superman movie.
They don't show them flying or they go off
even
screen.
when they fly away, when the kid holds up the cross in the scene when it flies away, it almost feels like I'm watching a cheap CW show like The Flash when they get pulled back. I'm like, this is just oof.
So it's the CGI of the flying, not necessarily the flying itself. It looks really bad, you're saying?
It looks really bad. It feels hokey. it's cheesy. It's cheesy. At least in the original, when he put the cross to his face, like, and he slowly goes back.
Yeah.
There's no like fucking like jolting and whipping.
You could be right, and I could watch this again and agree with you. Again, we've both only seen this.
Well, if you like it, that's fine. But you should watch it again.
The fact that I think the original is so cheesy, I think helps me with this movie. You know what I mean? Like, you don't get any of the cheesiness in the original, so it's a complete contrast for you. So when something like that happens in the new one, I kind of just, I'm like, oh yeah, that's Salem's Lot. That's what I expect. So it doesn't bother me. I will say that. I'm not going to disagree with you. No, I want to real quick before we go ahead. You talked about the characters and the kids specifically.
Oh, yeah, you want to talk about?
So I actually, again, this is going to be crazy, but I disagree with you. I think the fact that they suffered, the movie suffered because they didn't highlight enough of the town. We didn't have enough plots scattered throughout, and we didn't get a sense of the townfolk. But because they did that, we were able to focus on the characters that were in the movie a little bit more, and I personally cared about them a little bit more, except for Susan. Fuck Susan. I hated that character.
I'm so happy that she didn't make it out.
But the kids specifically, I mean, that scene where they're all hanging out in the room and the opening scene where he's getting bullied, I really actually cared for the kids. I couldn't tell you anything about the kids from the original movie, and these kids I actually had a bit of a connection to, and especially we'll shout out the kid who plays Mark. His name's Jordan.
Yeah, he was good.
Preston Carter. He was good. He put a good performance on.
Yeah, he was good.
I actually think that was one of the things I appreciated about this movie. They kind of honed it in, got rid of the side plots, which we figured they would, because there's no way you could fit all that in less than 2 hours. So that was kind of expected.
They got rid of everything that like made us feel with like the people in this town and what's going on in this town. Can we talk about Straker? Okay,
yeah, let's go.
Can't pronounce the guy's name, but he's Euron from Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
I might as well throw him in a Disney movie as a villain. The way he was acting in this movie, I'm like, woo! Just from the opening scene, I'm like, oh no, forced and over the top.
Okay, so let's compare him, because since you want to compare it to the original, this is going to turn into this episode where we just compare, which is fine. The original Straker actor and character, pretty hokey. I mean, pretty over the top.
But not this was just like, you see this guy smirk, and it just like the original. It's like I felt it when he smelled. It was the creepiness. This one is just like, ooh, I don't know, man. The dialogue and the way
you are a certified hater tonight.
I mean, they pulled him right out of Game of Thrones and threw him in this movie.
I didn't really. I didn't really have a problem with it. I don't think.
Do you want to ride home, bad. Boys?
I mean, again, I think that character is just kind of ridiculous in itself, like from the original. So it didn't really. It was definitely a different take on it, for sure.
Yes. So
people are definitely going to have their preference, because he definitely did a different take than the original. He actually, I didn't know he was in this movie when I first saw him, and I was like, oh, that's who they're going with? That's interesting. But, he's fine. I don't care about that character that much to really nitpick it, so...
I like Lewis Pullman. Like, he's fine. He's no David Soul, but if he did what he could to lead this movie and keep it together. Mm-hmm. He's a charming guy, but he's no David Soul.
Let's talk about Ben. Ben's pretty different in this movie in terms of his arc and why he's coming to Salem's Lot and all of that. I mean, in the original, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not a super fan like you are, but in the original, he goes under the guise that there might be vampires present in the house, and he's focused on the house right away. I mean, I think the first scene you see of Ben is him pulling up to the house, correct? The Marston house? So it's kind of, they ditched that, I feel like, and he just is coming back as a writer to kind of write about his childhood. And then he just so happens to stumble upon these accidents that happened at the house. Did I not pick up on something in the new one, or am I correct in that?
No, in the new one, he is just going back because he wants to write. He's a writer, and he wants to go back for research.
He kind of just stumbles into the. Yeah. Okay. So kind of different.
He's fine. He's fine. And again, in the original, it starts at the end and they flash back because it starts with Mark and Ben in the church.
Yes.
And he does return to Maine in the original. He's an author and he intends to write a book. So he does go back because about the old house. He doesn't know about the vampires. He just remembers the old house and the stories about the old house. So that's why he goes back to Salem's Lot in the original. He doesn't know about the vampires when he first shows up or anything.
No, he doesn't. But doesn't he start kind of connecting dots and he starts thinking that there could be...
He starts connecting the dots way
vampires.
Sooner than Ben does in this movie.
Yeah.
Ben's like oblivious until he's literally shown,
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
sees it from what's his face. The guy, I can't remember his name. What's the guy's name? He's from Bill Camp, Matthew Burke.
Yes,
the teacher
Burke.
in this movie.
Yeah.
He brings it to his attention.
Mhm.
Yeah, so
He did fine.
Yeah,
I liked Bill Camp in this movie. He did a good job. I was kind of bummed.
Fine too.
I was kind of
Lewis
bummed
Pullman was
he
fine.
died a little sooner than I would have liked. I would have liked to see him.
But his scene with Mike, played by Spencer Clark in this one, that sequence again pales in comparison. Like there's no, I'm not trying to compare it, but it's just a cheap couple of jump scares in this one, and
Yeah, I thought it worked for me. I thought the build-up was pretty cool, and then the jump scare worked. I didn't fly out of my chair, but I thought it was pretty cool. I'm a fan of jump scares when done correctly. I don't
am
shy
too
away
when done right
from
but
jump
they all
scares.
felt cheap to me.
Yeah. What was I about to... I was about to say something about what we were just talking about. I wanted to highlight something. We were talking about
characters
Ben.
or...
Yeah.
Okay, Ben.
I can't remember. Damn, but we can move forward, and I'll probably remember.
Okay, well, when it pops back in, just shout it out so we don't
Yeah.
forget that. I remember something that we also talked about in last week's episode. Again, guys, it's obviously pretty imperative that you watch last week's episode the more we get into this episode because we keep referring to it.
Yeah.
But Nolan brought up the score, and I was like, oh my god, the score like brought that movie to life.
Oh, yeah.
Dun, dun. And this movie, whew. Again, I'm going to use the word hokey and over the top and just not memorable and generic. That's the word of the night for this movie. Generic and cheap and a ripoff and an imitator. It's just, I'm bummed. And I was going to say this, this movie, Lewis Pullman's no David Soul, and this movie has no soul. It's soulless.
Yeah, I thought they brought the goods. I'm not going to comment on the score because I wasn't really listening for it.
Yeah.
It wasn't memorable, so I'll just say that. It didn't stand out to me, so I really can't comment on that. It's something it's one of those things where on a first watch, I'm not really, unless the score is like in your face, I'm not really going to pinpoint it and think about it. I'm thinking about so many other things for the podcast, especially,
right,
that I didn't really pick up on it, but so I'll have to take your word on that.
No, I mean, we were watching. I mean, if you didn't, but it blatantly stood out to me as like, okay. I really want to. I know you are not a fan of the pace of the original, but you don't feel that this movie is just a strung together scenes of like scare sequences with forced like dialogue in between.
I
do
do think it is a mess for a very different reason. So I actually think they should have went completely, and I haven't read the book, guys, so I'm not really too familiar with the source material of the book, and I know Stephen King was an executive producer. I don't know how much he played into this, but I know he's been hyping this movie up.
Yeah. But
the reason this movie felt jumbled, especially in the beginning, was I feel like they were... And it kind of harpens back to our discussion during last Halloween when we were doing our Halloween rankings. Remember I talked about Rob Zombie's Halloween and how they kind of just ripped off the original for no reason? I wish they went completely separated from 79. If you're going to do a different tone, don't try to rip off scenes, and I feel like they had to throw
and not
in
do it as effective.
I don't know if this was the producers getting involved, but they definitely threw in multiple scenes, especially the first half of the movie, that was just there because the original had it and it didn't fit the movie, and that's kind of why I feel like it took a little while for it to hit its stride. So I will agree with you there, but in terms of the jump scares and the set pieces, again, I think once it gets going and the story is kind of fleshed out in the beginning, as jumbled as it was, I think it worked for me. I think it flowed pretty well. I'm really not displeased with it. So, yeah.
Okay. You want to get more into Barlow, so because you seem to not mind him as much.
Listen, I mean, I'm not going to defend the CGI. You know, all I'll say is
CGI's fine, but like make it feel like use it to enhance. Don't use it as your whole thing.
Mhm.
It just because there was a performer in there, and I feel like they ruined his performance. Like it could have. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like silver lining. I feel like it could have been worse. They could have did like full Gollum where it's all CGI, and I do think it was a little bit of both. I do think it was heavy-handed for sure, and I would have liked to see it all practical, but the actual design I wasn't too displeased with. I thought it was pretty creepy. The one close-up shot where he's going in for the bite, I forget who he was going to bite, where he's got the mouth wide open and he's going in and it's just like darkness in his mouth. That was really creepy. I thought that was really cool. So there were times where he spooked me. You know,
Okay.
I'm not going to say that he was a total disappointment, but I'm also not going to like defend him because all of your critiques are pretty valid with him for sure. Because, and even I admitted last week, you know, Barlow in the original is fucking terrifying.
He's one of
so,
the goats.
I
You
mean,
said
he's
goat.
one of the goats.
You said
Yeah,
goat.
he is. In terms of scary vampires, he is the goat. Yeah. So,
Right.
of course, this one doesn't live up. It doesn't even
I
really
was
hold a
even
candle
like
to him.
I was really looking forward. We kept going back. You know, everyone goes to the drive-in. That's all people do around here. And I'm like, okay, obviously the finale is gonna be at the drive-in. I'm like, I've watched movies my whole life. I know it's gonna be there. And then when we got there, I'm like, oh my god, even this is a letdown. This set piece. I'm like,
What?
why is it not more epic?
That was one of my
and cool?
favorite. Oh, I'm glad you said that word, epic. I got from this movie what I wanted from the original. Even though this movie was less than 2 hours, we got that epicness of the finale that I was missing in like the build up
Really?
to the 3-hour television series. I wanted it to feel more epic in the original, and I feel like this was pretty cool. I mean, the showdown with Barlow, the sunset, you know, the TV screen, all of it worked for me. I thought it was really cool, and yeah, I even before that, let's not jump too far ahead. Even before that,
Okay.
with the church scene, I kind of highlighted that.
Oh yeah.
When they're in the car and they see the two vampires on the roof of the I forget whose house it was,
And
and
they
they're
drive
staring
by.
at him. That was pretty creepy.
They see
that was
Danny
cool.
and Mike, I think, are on the roof. Those two vampires.
Yeah, the two kids, right? Was it the two kids? Danny and
It's
Mike?
Danny and the graveyard digger.
Oh, okay, yeah, the graveyard digger, yeah. And then, like I said, outside the church, when they're all kind of just on Main Street, that was really cool. You kind of got a sense that this town was pretty much all dead at that point. And then they double down when you go to the drive-in movie scene. There are so many coffins / cars there. It's like, oh my god, they got to deal with all of these vampires. So I thought it was done well. I actually really enjoyed the ending.
Yeah. I wish I did. I didn't. I do think it's cool. Like I just giggle and I get a little chuckle that the coffins were the trunks. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah.
Funny.
Well, as soon as you pull up, you kind of knew. You're like, okay, they're all in the trunks.
This is hilarious. This fits the tone of the movie. It's funny, but you know, so I did appreciate that. But yeah, the actual final showdown again to me paled in comparison to the creepy crawlers like going through the crawl space trying to get to them in the original when they're trying to kill Barlow, like the slow, like creepy suspense. This one, it's like you open the trunks, they all attack, you kill them quick, and they all, you know, go up in CGI flames, and then you shoot. I do think it was also funny. I laughed when they shot Barlow through the head, and you could see Ben through the hole in his head. That was fun. Like,
that was a cool shot. Yeah, that was a cool shot.
That was a cool shot, but again, you know, very over the top, and
but
it's just
that's
a
the
different vibe.
tone. That's the tone of the movie. So, you know, that's
it's
why I
not.
liked it. It's not trying to be the original, and that when it deviated from the original is when I loved the movie the most.
But it tried to like have its cake and eat it too. It
I
wanted
agree
to be
with you.
both.
I do agree with you there. Yeah, I do agree with you. Yep.
So yeah, go full out and be a campy blast and do it from start to finish, but don't try to, again, maybe don't have the Salem's name attached to it. And if you're gonna do it, like don't even try to pay respect. Do your own thing from start to finish and maybe that could have helped a little bit more if they didn't try to, pay homage and do these scenes. Maybe it could have helped the flow of the movie. If they just went full on camp from start to finish and did their own thing. I maybe would have appreciated something different. But because they wanted to be, dark and atmospheric, plus the over the top cheese and campy fright fest, it kind of like didn't vibe and mesh well with me.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I guess I don't really consider it an over the top camp fest like you do. I think it was there in certain
And
elements.
it's not like good camp, it's like cringe camp to me.
Yeah. Yeah, that really sucks.
I'm
there.
bummed.
I know.
I'm bummed, man.
Yeah.
I'm super bummed that I'm not here like being like, oh my god, I have 2 Salem's Lot movies to watch back to back all the time. I'll rewatch this one again, like give it like see if I'm being too harsh, like, give you guys a follow-up message in our YouTube
Yeah.
video, but
Maybe this will
I
crack your
don't-
top 10 for the year.
I just don't know. I don't think that's gonna happen. I'm super, super bummed to report that. Yeah, it's just, it wasn't my cup of tea.
All right. Fun.
It wasn't
please.
my, it wasn't
right.
for me.
Yeah.
I don't want to sink my teeth into this one too often, so.
Yeah. That's so interesting because, you like campy fun. You like
I do.
movies like
I
that,
love it.
So
I love them. Yeah.
I can't help but feel that it's because of the original.
But it's not just because I like campy fun. It doesn't mean like the movie has to be put together well. I just think, there was a lot of cuts and chops to this movie as well. Like I
You
think
think so?
it was shelved for 2 years and they did a lot to it. Like they
Yeah.
butchered it up a little bit.
Yeah.
I do think
Maybe
so.
they cut it for streaming. Maybe it was going to be a
And
little
maybe,
bit longer in
and
theaters.
well, I want to bring that up. I'm so happy, like you just said, maybe they cut it for streaming. But once they realize they're going to do it for streaming, why not just have it be a long epic and make it a little mini series? Like it's on streaming anyway. You don't have to worry about the runtime at this point.
Yeah, that's true.
Make it a few episodes, and we can watch it over the whole week this weekend rather than watch it one night. So I almost feel like if you're going to do it like that,
It's Warner
it.
Brothers we're talking about here, so we
and they're
should be
fucking
grateful
making really
they
bad
didn't
decisions.
they didn't shelve it.
But,
so yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. Like if you're gonna do that, make it. If you want content for Max, just do it.
Yeah.
Make it a streaming show.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like there's I'm bummed because I feel like there's so much potential, and it was just wasted to try to make a quick buck off. Like, and again, I love The Conjuring. I'm not talking shit, but how do we like be the most like a jump scare Conjuring fest and like make the most money?
Okay. Yeah, I'm just
And
trying to...
I think all the like I will say like his Annabelle Comes Home I think is like leagues better than this movie.
Really? So I was kind of... I didn't really know how to phrase the question, but, he's worked on It. He's worked on Annabelle, the Conjuring universe.
Mhm.
This feels worse to you, though, than all of those movies. Okay. See, I kind of put it right there with the It movies. It Chapter 1. I mean,
love... And it's so funny
feels
because...
like that a lot to me. Like the overall tone, and it gets campy, but it kind of doesn't go too crazy. I don't know. I feel like
But again, you're talking
very...
about a killer clown who like can transform into different beings. Like that vibe is different. And it's so funny because it's almost... I mean, I love that you keep bringing up It because the original It was also a mini series that came out, and and so was Salem's Lot.
Yeah.
And then, so when I went to see It, Chapter 1, I was like, because I did love the original It, when it came out. But Chapter 1, I'm like, okay, it felt like an R-rated, Goosebumps episode, and that's why I kind of liked It, Chapter 1. But again, we're talking about Pennywise, who is a clown who transforms. It's completely different than this gloomy, dark town that's supposed to be infested with these menacing vampires. I mean, it does have a little bit of camp and kookiness to it, but I think it fits that way better than Salem's Lot. And I do think those two movies, first of all, the two It movies are both, I mean, It Chapter 2 is almost 3 hours, and that was released in theaters. So this movie was like chopped down to under 2 hours. And again, that because those two movies were allowed to breathe and let us fall in love with the characters as children and adults. This movie, I do feel like they were like butchered it up and like, how do we like make it just a quick jump scare fest? And It Chapter 2 weren't quick. They were both over 2 hours long. We got time to, have time in between the scares to fall in love with the characters and feel, for them and have a good pace and rhythm with the movie. So then again, that's something that I do prefer in the It movies versus this, where we have no time. We just have these
those are
scare
valid
scenes.
points. The only thing I'll say is the It story is way more grand than Salem's Lot, and I agree with you that they kind of chopped it up, especially in the first half of this movie. But this movie could have easily been a good solid 2 hours, and they could have done the story justice. I don't think the story is that crazy convoluted. It's about a descent into darkness, this little town, and vampires kind of feeding on these people. I don't think it's that difficult to do. So I don't necessarily see, you're kind of saying you wish they kind of let it breathe, either have like a 2-parter or like do like a 4-hour, that's why I didn't like the original. So it's hard for me to get on board.
And again, I rewatched it. First of all, thank you guys for watching our episode because it's doing really well.
Yeah.
I kept saying in that episode, like, this is going to be so fascinating.
Yeah.
Comparing the two.
It is.
And I'm just going to
really
say it again
is.
right
Yeah.
now. Like, I'm really fascinated by this. But again, like, dude, like, even when Mark, is his name Mark? When he goes into the house and he's searching, and then what's his name goes in after him? Matthew Burke goes in after him. It's like they just go, like, in the original, when it's Mark and then Susan goes in, it's almost like they're going through the whole house and they're creepily going through, and then Straker comes and then he takes Susan. They go, Barlow will love you. In this one, it's like, first of all, every scene a vampire pops up, they're like, Barlow wants to meet you. I'm like, oh my god, if you said that one more time, I'm gonna fucking slap you in the face. But when they go to the house, it's almost like the kid, it does also feel like a set. It looks like a set. It looks like a fucking set. Whatever. I'll give him a pass. But Burke and the kid don't even really get out of the basement. It's just right away, boom. He gets bit. It's not.
So you're just
it's
comparing that. See, I this is what I'm saying, where I kind of knew you weren't gonna like this movie, because every scene, like when that scene popped up, you're instantly comparing it to the original. Which
but
I think
you don't
is
feel like they left something on the
unfair.
table with that, where they just like they go into the basement quick and then they get attacked. Like, you don't feel like there's anything that
I don't think it was
feel
any more
satisfied
rushed.
with that?
No, I mean they creep through the basement. I thought it was a pretty good sequence. I don't, I think it served
How
its
do you
purpose.
feel about Mark killing Straker?
I'm not a big Stryker fan, so no comment. I guess it's okay.
I mean,
obviously you have a problem with it, but
no, I actually that
it's
was
okay.
Like, oh, okay, cool. Like, you fucking smashed his head in, like, cool. Like, I was,
yeah. And then Susan's mother becomes the new Stryker, and that was
God.
That was pretty.
I forgot about that. You just brought that up again. Oh my god.
She had an awesome moment though with the shotgun. That was pretty fucking crazy.
Well, you said let's talk. You said you were shocked. He killed our girl, Dr. Cody.
Yes. So
let's go back to the scene though first with Danny's mom in the, I guess, the morgue, whatever you want to call it. I guess that's what we'll call it.
Yes.
When, first of all, we had another imitation of the scene from the OG, and I'm not gonna, because again, I think it pales in comparison.
This one was different enough, though. It didn't feel like a complete riff off. They were obviously going for something from the, like, obviously they were mirroring it, but it was this one. I'll give him a pass. I agree with you with the other stuff, and that was my biggest complaint. But I actually kind of liked the scene. The beginning of the scene, I was like, oh no, this is going to be pretty cringe, right? I mean, but when her voice changed and she's going after Dr. Cody, I thought it was pretty intense. I actually thought she was pretty menacing with that voice and stuff.
I love the part when they're doing, like, I don't know, I'm going to call them sticks when they're trying, because they do that in the original.
Yeah, the little tongue sticks. Whatever.
Yeah,
the doctor
tongue
sticks.
Things, yeah. But one thing I will say also, like, I think like the crosses light up a little too much in this movie. Again, that's a little hokey, but whatever.
I mean, it's Jesus, man. You can't not Jesus. Come on, man. Let's not go there.
The crosses with the tongue sticks, I was dying. They kept like, oh, you gotta bind it. You gotta bind it. I literally think a line in the movie is Susan, who I'm sorry, and I don't like to hate on actors, but like, whew,
I know
this girl and this character. I mean, I'm sure the script didn't do her any favors, but she said, I think a line is literally to Ben in this scene, "You're a writer. do something. I'm like, what the fuck does that have to do with this situation?
I don't remember
at
that.
all. That's a specific line.
I
You're
love
a writer.
that they use like the Scotch tape and they try to and then it
I
fucking
will
just
say-
breaks instantly. That was great. That was
I
pretty
did
cool.
laugh, and I'm laughing in a good. This is the moment when I laughed in like a good way when Dr. Cody is stabbing Danny's mom in the face. She's like, "There's no blood. There's no blood coming." I was just dying, but that was good camp. That was good camp.
Yeah. Yeah. That scene was actually I liked that scene. I thought it was gonna go astray, but they kept it all together for me, and I thought the vampire and the voice the voice is what really sold me. I thought it was gonna be because in the beginning she's like calling out to Danny. She's like, Danny, like, where are you? I'm like,
that part was that part. I'm like, oh, they're gonna like get the creepiness going, and then they just went to the whole set piece of it all, like action set piece.
I'm kind of glad because again, that kind of reminded me of the original, which I didn't really love. So
see, like
the
I get
fact that it
chills when I'm like,
deviated,
Danny.
yeah.
Danny. I'm like, oh, this is scary. But they do give us because Dr. Cody, she gets bit in the scene, and then she, I guess, reverses it. Whatever she gives herself has them shoot her up with. But then you see like, okay, she's gonna be a survivor. Vaccine. Yeah, she's gonna be a survivor, and then she even like saves Ben because when they're in the church later after Susan's turned, Ben again is a dumbass, and he runs after Susan. And then when he comes back to the church, she has to save him to keep the vampires away from coming in. And we're like, oh, she's going to be if you want to call her a final girl. And then to Nolan's point, she does get killed with the shotgun by...
blasted into oblivion.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was a cool
Crazy.
kill. But
by
again,
Anne Norton. Mrs. Norton.
Oh, and Mrs. Norton is a
character. But yeah, I really liked Dr. Cody. I thought Alfred Woodard...
and she's a good actress.
Is a really good actress. I thought she brought some heart to this role, and you could tell she puts everything into all of her work. And I really did believe that she was like a doctor that cared about the town and cared about the people. I thought that was a really good casting choice. That she was one of the highlights for me, for sure.
Yeah, she was one of the less hokey parts, which I appreciated what she was bringing. I felt like she should be in a different movie, but she was also a little fun trivia. She was in the first Annabelle, little cross connection right there. So, yeah, I thought that was fine. I think again, I laughed again when Ben just got like picked up and flown up against the church. Again, I'm like, stop doing that fast shit like that. But whatever, it was cool when he fell back down. You like obviously we knew it wasn't him, but people could be like, oh my god, he just smashed. But no, him killing, he killed Mike and he put the stake in Mike. That was cool. But there's moments of coolness in this for me, but as a whole, it's just like, ooh, slob kebab.
Didn't Barlow... I know you have a ton of issues with Barlow in this movie. Just his overall design and kind of how they showed him. But when we're talking specifically power level, I feel like his power level was higher in this movie. I feel like he felt more powerful than in the original. Are you going to disagree with that? I mean, he was pretty powerful in this movie. I mean, at least I got that sense. I don't know.
But I don't think he was any more powerful or less powerful than any of the other vampires in the movie, because all they did was like fly around and try to kill things.
I thought the pastor scene was really cool. The priest, where he just douses the cross. That line was pretty cold. That was a pretty cool line. What he says to the priest, where he's like, "Where's your faith or whatever? Like your faith isn't strong enough or something like that, or something about not being a believer." Yeah, that was pretty cool.
I don't like that he talks. Oh,
I thought that was a really badass moment for me. That was really cool.
I don't know. I hate it, but whenever I look at his face, I'm like, oh, you could be so much more terrifying, my dude. You could be so much more terrifying.
So your version of Barlow, so he doesn't talk in the original, correct?
No, my version of Barlow is the original, who was a throwback to Nosferatu, the creepy motherfucker.
But does he talk in general?
He doesn't talk at all. He does like the... I don't know.
But like the character itself, like off screen, does Barlow talk? Because I feel like he is the mastermind of everything.
He is. Him and Stryker have their communication.
Okay.
But we don't ever see, obviously, but in the original, we don't ever see that, which again to me is pro. And this one, it's I mean, again, it's a couple. He has like 2 lines of dialogue, so it's not like the end of the world. It's just.
Well, that's what I'm kind of getting at.
everything
Is I again, and I like my vampires to be smart, like a kind of smarter, and so I didn't really bother. I didn't really bother me because I always thought of Barlow as the head vampire, and he's the one that's orchestrating,
Oh, he is.
you know, Salem's Lot takeover. So the fact that he talks is kind of fine with me. I don't really have an issue with it.
Yeah, I
Because
mean,
he
it's
should
not
talk.
it's not at the top of my list of like things I don't like
Uh-huh.
about this movie yet, by
Okay.
any means. But it's also like, again, more is not more all the time. You know, sometimes less is more.
So you
and this
didn't
goes
really
on.
like that scene with the priest? I thought that
No,
was a cool
because
scene.
again, I felt like it was. I can't help but feel like every scene was rushed and forced. It's just like to Mark's
that
dad,
was
like, don't go out there.
intense.
He goes out there, and I didn't feel any
the
intensity
fucking
for 1 second.
the treehouse scene when the kid with all the kids from
That
the neighborhood around
that-
the treehouse, that was your first glimpse of holy shit, like they have an army of vampires and like they were all kids. Like so he got all of these kids and they're all surrounding the treehouse.
Yeah, that
I
was
thought that was
cool.
really cool.
I like that scene. It's cool. Again, it would have been more cool if it wasn't overloaded with VFX and I didn't get taken out of it. But I do think that in theory, that scene was really cool when he ran up to the tree. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Like his friends are coming to try to get him. But I get taken out of it because
Yeah.
he did way too much in the VFX department. I'd almost wish someone told him, like James Wan, who was a producer on this, and like, hey, dude, like, let's go back to basics. Like, let's go back to, you know, the basis of what I did in the first Conjuring rather than, you know, some of the It CGI and all the CGI fest. And again, I think It even handled the CGI better than this movie because if you're going to do CGI, that's the movie to do it in. And I think that, you know, you still have Bill Skarsgård to, like, bring that down. Because Bill Skarsgård in It, when it's just him, it's not CGI until he goes, you know, freaking out. Even in this movie, like Barlow, you can't say the same. Every scene Barlow's in, you can tell they did some VFX to him. I just like, why are you ruining it?
Yeah, Barlow I'll agree with, but I actually don't mind the CGI. Like the treehouse scene, I don't think it was overdone with
Okay.
CGI. I think I have less of an issue with use of CGI just in general, maybe, than you do. I do appreciate a good
Maybe.
practical effect, but it didn't take me out of it. I feel like
Yeah,
it
I
was
wish
fine.
it didn't, but it did because I thought that scene was cool, and so I'm just like,
Really interesting to hear from you guys. Maybe
yeah,
we can run
I'm
a
so
poll.
excited.
If,
we're definitely.
we'll run a couple of different polls on whether you
Yes.
think it was
Well,
the
we'll do.
CGI
Which
was
one do you prefer?
overdone. Or,
CGI. Who's
I mean, we both agree
this?
that, you know, overuse of CGI is bad. So I'm not defending
Right.
all of its use of CGI.
Maybe
it
not
just
like
didn't really bother me as much as you.
Or
I
maybe like
guess.
did any of whatever pull you out of the movie? Like we'll do some fun things over the next week because it still sounds
Yeah,
not
just
weak,
you
but
know,
yeah.
comment on our posts
Yeah.
and stuff. We want to hear from you guys. You don't even have to wait for the poll. We love interacting with
Mm-hmm.
all you guys in the comments. So definitely shoot us a comment, a post. YouTube, this is gonna be on YouTube. You can even leave comments on Spotify if you listen on Spotify.
Yeah,
so we love
please
hearing from
comment
you
on our
guys
YouTube,
for
Please,
sure. Yeah,
we need the interaction.
yeah.
Oh wow.
Okay.
So this is I think this
That was
is
it,
the
right?
most negative I've been on a movie since we've done this
Seriously.
podcast.
Seriously, yeah. I mean, what's been your lowest score? Do you remember?
I think my lowest score was High Tension, and that's only and I loved that movie until I didn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And what was that?
I don't know.
Like
I'm
in the
thinking
sixes.
I think that was a 6.5. Maybe Sleepaway Camp 2 was like a 6.5. I haven't been like below mid sixes yet, I don't believe.
You had Sleepaway Camp in the sixes? I thought that was higher
Yeah.
for you. Okay.
Maybe it was a 6.7, but
All right. Well, let's get into our never split up moments first.
okay.
I'll let you go first since you won the poll.
Okay. Mine's gonna be quick and simple. It's easy. It's after Susan is turned, which I'm like, thank God. I'm like, I wish he had listened to Dr. Cody and like killed her sooner. But it's when they're going to the church and she like runs out because she needs to go to the darkness and be with the vampires. It's that Ben follows her out and goes into the streets. That's before the scene that you really like happens, where he looks
Yeah.
up and sees the vampires. My obviously never split up moment is he didn't listen to Dr. Cody. Like he went out and chased her instead of staying in there in the church. You know, that's literally, again, that's a pretty straightforward never split up moment. So I'm gonna go with that one.
Okay.
Because the other ones are just, you know, cheap imitations of never split up moments.
I'll have to disagree with you there because I think the biggest never split up moment was another literal one. Was right before this, after they escape from the house. They only have about an hour of sunlight left, and my boy Mark
They split up.
highlights it. He's like, "Guys, should we really be splitting up?" So they had this grandiose plan to go and save pretty much everyone and bring them to the church, and they had like a half hour left.
Well, I
And
love that.
Mark was the only one.
Minutes.
Yeah, Mark was the only one to have sense to say, like, is this really a good idea? And they're like, we don't have time. We have to split up. So I'm going to go with the entire group splitting up. And that caused a lot of chaos and people to die because of it. So they should have just stayed together as a group, go to the church. They could have maybe on the way, if they wanted to, like, stop at, like, Mark's house to get his parents, like, go together though. So they all split up. That was another big moment, and they actually almost broke the fourth wall there with Mark by saying, like, should we split up? The classic, the character
wink.
saying it in the in the movie. So I'll go with
But
that.
I love
one.
that we both have actual, like, literal never split up moments because they both scenes they split up.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get to these scores.
Okay. I'll go first unless you want to go first.
Okay, yeah, go first. Yeah, let's go a little positive with
this movie definitely has issues. Again, I just watched this a couple hours ago, so it's really hard for me to digest the entire thing in one sitting. But my honest, raw thoughts you just heard, and I agree with Ann on some points, but I really think this movie finds its stride about halfway through, and once it gets going and it finds a good pace, I really think it delivers the goods. I think there's some cool kills. I think there's some pretty creepy, suspenseful scenes, not quite as long and drawn out like Ant pointed out, but I think they're good enough for me. Barlow has some cool kills. Some cool jump scares, which I appreciate a good jump scare, as long as it's not done every 5 seconds, I like that. And I think I got the overall sense of dread in terms of this town is fucked and there is no more Salem's Lot by the end of it. So I think they delivered on that. I think there were some good performances, some not so good performances. I thought Lewis Pullman was fine. Again, we talked about Bill Camp and Jordan Carter, who played Mark, and of course Alfred Woodard was good. So I think they kind of helped carry the movie, even though the script was not the best, I will agree. But yeah, this movie's fun. I definitely will rewatch this more than the original. But I think you kind of expected that, Anthony. I pretty much told you as much last week that I don't really plan on rewatching the original Salem's Lot too often. Maybe I'll revisit it in a couple years again, but I think this was a fun time, and it's definitely a recommend, especially if you like movies like It and, the Annabelle movies. I think this is, because you brought it up, I think this is a step above something like the Annabelle movies. It's maybe not quite, doesn't hit the highs of It Chapter 1, and I actually like It Chapter 2. I know that movie gets ragged on a lot, especially on film Twitter. I see people hating on that movie. I like both of them. I don't think it quite hits those highs, but I think it could be in the same conversation. So that being said, I'm going to give this a solid 8 out of 10. Flat 8.
Wow. And can you just tell the audience what you gave the original, just so we have that?
Oh, yeah. I gave the original a 7 out of 10. So nice and clean. A 7 out of 10 and then 8 out of 10 for this one.
Woo! 8 out of 10. All right.
And before you go, you gave the original a 9 point what?
7.
9.7.
9.7.
So,
Biggie for me.
Yes.
Okay, so I already pretty much said a lot how I feel about this movie. Again, my only way I recommend it is if you have nothing better to watch on like a Friday night, in October, and you're sitting at home and you're have Max, and you're like, let me just throw this on to watch a horror movie. It'll like, you're not going to be bored, I'll say, you'll at least watch it and you'll get through it, but it doesn't deliver the atmosphere, the suspense, the sense of dread, the overall feeling that I want from a vampire movie with these sadistic, menacing vampires. It just feels like a generic camp jump scare fest, which I love, but it's not effective. There's no effective jump scare in this movie. There's no effective set piece in this movie. So again, if you have nothing better to watch, you guys can watch this if you want, just to see what it's all about, and just if you're curious. But I'm gonna give this, to me, like, you get into like, you're good at a 6. I'm gonna say this is like not unwatchable, so I'm gonna probably give this a 5.6.
Whoo!
Yeah.
Wow, 5.6. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. All
And,
right.
and again, I
Okay.
gave the original 9.7, so it's a huge,
That is
huge
huge.
gap. Yeah.
Yeah, that is huge. I as you were saying that, I kind of when I was watching this movie, I got like 30 Days of Night vibes from it too. So I'm a little
Oh, no,
surprised
no,
you
no,
didn't
no, no, no,
you
no,
didn't
no,
really
no, no,
in
no,
terms
no.
of like the viciousness of the vampires and how they're kind of hunting everyone
Oh yeah, I
towards
thought
the
they
end.
were way more. And what did you? I can't remember what, because I think I gave 30 Days of Night a 9. I fucking love that movie.
I didn't give it as high. It was like a high sixes, I
I
think.
think you maybe
I think
you
I
came back reevaluated.
I came
maybe
back
you gave it a
around to
7.
like maybe like a
Yeah.
7, yeah, like a low
Okay.
sevens. But I think I like
Yeah.
this movie definitely more. I think the
Well, you did.
yeah,
You gave it an 8.
the highs are a little bit better. I think. Yeah.
We talked about it last week, but I just want to reiterate. I do think now it's really important that we do a ranking of our favorite vampire movies, because we clearly have completely
Yeah.
different tastes.
Okay.
So this is on the
I'm
list.
always down for vampire content. This was fun
Yeah.
the last 3 weeks, so for sure we'll revisit
all
this
right,
just
so-
subgenre.
Nolan's an 8. I'm a 5.6. You guys, like, you heard both of our thoughts. You take that, how you want, and you make your own decision. But I love when we have episodes when we don't agree, because it's just, again, I want to use it. It's so interesting and fascinating to me.
This
that
is
what
yeah,
movies
one of
do.
our biggest discrepancies. We've had, like you
Yep.
said, High Tension, Chucky. We had a big discrepancy. Obviously, Scream 2 was a couple points off. So yeah, this was one of those fun episodes where we just kind of went back and forth and really didn't see eye to eye on much. But
on really anything.
what's
which
great
is
about movies, right?
crazy.
It's the beauty of cinema. So
But that's Salem's Lot 2024, guys. We'll be back for more spooky content next week. Do you want?
Yes.
Should we just we release the schedule? Should we just announce what we're covering next week?
yeah, so next week, talk
You
about a
announce it,
biggie.
because this is your
Talk about a biggie,
franchise.
one of my favorite franchises. We are revisiting the Saw franchise. So we are covering Saw 2. This is a big one for you, because this was, if you go back to our franchise rankings last year, I don't want to spoil it, but this was very, very high up for Anthony, and it's high up for me too. I mean, this is just a really solid movie, so I'm really excited to cover one of my favorite franchises of all time, especially in the horror franchise. Saw 2, that's going to be a really cool episode. I'm really excited to do my rewatch. I haven't seen it since last year, I believe, last October when we covered this franchise, so that's going to be fun. And then we'll just go through the rest of the schedule. So after that, that'll be released on October 16th. And then here we go, guys. We're getting into, the middle of October. October 23rd is another huge one. Back-to-back big ones. It's Halloween 2018. So we're going all the way from, we covered the original Halloween. We decided to cover the David Gordon Green trilogy first, because as you know, there are so many different timelines to the Halloween franchise, but we figure, you know what, since this is still kind of fresh and relevant, we want to cover that first before it gets too stale. So we're really excited about that. And then the week of Halloween, we're doing a double feature. We have on Tuesday the 29th, we are doing a top 10 list. We're getting back to our lists, which we both love, our top 10 horror movies of the 2010s. That's going to be really fun. I'm super pumped for that. That actually might be my most anticipated episode this month, because I love making those lists with you and hearing your list. So that's going to be awesome. And then if you want to announce our episode on Halloween, Thursday the 31st is...
Yes, so guys, our episode on Halloween, which I'm so excited about, is going to be Trick or Treat. There's no other way to end the spooky season than that. And again, like Nolan said, Saw 2 episode, we covered the original and we did a ranking, so make sure you guys watch that first. Halloween 2018, we did a Halloween franchise ranking. We covered the original.
Yep.
And I have OCD, but I allowed this because, like Nolan said, there are different timelines. So I was okay with skipping Halloween 2 and going to this and taking care of this. But make sure you guys watch those Halloween episodes before you hit that one. And again, our top 10 2010s horror movies. I don't know about you, but I've started my research, and it's going to be very hard. Very hard to make this
It's right in our
list.
sweet spot. I mean, we were in like our 20s.
know.
Kind of had formed our horror opinions. We made it through high school. We were adults, bright-eyed into the world, and that was our sweet spot.
Really
Early
tough, man.
2000s and 2010s are like my sweet spot for horror. It's, especially with new releases. So
And then
Yeah.
even when you get to Trick or Treat, we did talk about Sam in our favorite modern horror villains episode. So make sure you guys go check that one out before we get to our Trick or Treat episode. So we got a lot of goodies left. I'm excited.
It's crazy how long a decade is, because you talk about 2010. We were so young. It was, almost 15 years ago. But then
Right.
you go to 2019 and it doesn't feel that long ago. It was right before,
Right.
COVID and everything, which feels like it
Right.
was yesterday. So it's going
Right.
to span a lot. I mean, I feel like the 2010s was the start of the golden age of this horror renaissance. So there's going to be a lot of bangers, I think, on our list. And I'm really,
And we have to
really
do
excited.
10.
I know. But we have to stick to 10 and some honorable
I
mentions,
know.
or it's going to be 4 hours.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So that's it, guys. That's the Never Split Up podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us. This was a fun episode. Check out our previous episodes on some of our favorite vampire movies. We did the original Dracula with Bela Lugosi. Check that out. And then obviously, our 2 Salem lots. Had a fun time discussing vampires. We'll get back to this subgenre soon enough. We'll do a list for you guys. But until next time, when we cover Saw 2, follow us on X and Instagram at Never Split Up Pod. Let us know what you think about these movies. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.